Unmask the invisible saboteurs of success and prosperity. Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you work, something invisible seems to pull you back? Why some people, despite their talent and determination, never quite break free into the prosperity they desire? The truth is, success and abundance are rarely blocked by external circumstances alone. More often than not, the greatest saboteurs are hidden within us. Subtle, invisible forces of thought, belief, and habit that disguise themselves so well, we don't even notice them. What you are about to hear is not theory, and it is not philosophy for the sake of inspiration. These are living truths tested in the lives of those who broke free from limitation and created extraordinary success. If you listen carefully, you will see your own life reflected in these sabotaging patterns, and you will realize that the key to prosperity is not found outside of you, but in how you choose to respond within. In this video, I'm going to unmask those silent saboteurs that drain your energy, sabotage your confidence, and keep you locked in cycles of scarcity. And once you see them clearly, you'll never again fall into their traps. This isn't about theory. It's about clarity, empowerment, and awakening to your true potential. So let's go straight to the core. Topic 1. The silent enemy of self-doubt. Self-doubt is not loud. It doesn't storm into your mind shouting, "You can't do this." Instead, it whispers. It shows up as hesitation, as second-guessing, as that quiet voice that says, "Maybe you're not ready yet," or "What if you fail?" It disguises itself as rationality, as caution, even as humility. But in truth, self-doubt is one of the most powerful invisible saboteurs of success and prosperity. Think about it. How many opportunities have you let pass because you weren't sure if you were good enough? How many times have you prepared, studied, planned, but in the final moment, you pulled back because you feared the outcome? That hesitation doesn't feel like sabotage in the moment. It feels like being careful, like protecting yourself. But it's really a thief of time, of action, of dreams. Success and prosperity are built on action. Not perfect action, not action without risk, but action with faith. And faith can't coexist with self-doubt. The moment doubt enters, faith begins to dissolve. And without faith, your vision fades, your energy drops, and your momentum stalls. You see, the subconscious mind is incredibly obedient. If you feed it doubt, it will generate scenarios, images, and feelings to justify that doubt. It will make the risk feel bigger than it is. It will magnify the chance of failure and minimize the potential for victory. This is how people stay trapped in the same place for years, sometimes decades. Not because they lacked ability, but because they allowed the invisible saboteur of doubt to rule them. Now, here's the shift. Self-doubt only has power when it's unexamined. When you shine the light of awareness on it, you realize something stunning. It's not truth. It's just fear dressed as wisdom. And once you see it, you can choose differently. You can act anyway. You can decide that your dreams are worth moving forward in the face of uncertainty. That's when faith returns. That's when the door to prosperity opens. Self-doubt thrives in silence because it rarely announces itself loudly. It creeps in as hesitation, second-guessing, or the subtle belief that others are always more capable than you. It convinces you to shrink your dreams before they even leave your mind, and it sabotages opportunities by making you question your worth at the very moment you're meant to step forward. The tragedy of self-doubt is not that it proves you wrong, but that it keeps you from ever discovering how right you could have been. So the next time you feel hesitation rising inside you, pause. Ask yourself, is this doubt protecting me, or is it sabotaging me? If the only thing standing between you and your next step is fear of not being enough, then it's not protection, it's sabotage. And now you have the power to unmask it and step forward anyway. Topic 2. The trap of negative self-talk. We often underestimate the power of our own words. Not the words we speak out loud, but the silent ones we repeat inside our minds every single day. This inner dialogue shapes how we see ourselves, how we face challenges, and ultimately, how much success and prosperity we allow ourselves to experience. Negative self-talk is one of the most cunning invisible saboteurs because it hides behind familiarity. You've been repeating these lines for so long that they no longer sound like lies. They sound like truth. Think about the last time you failed at something or didn't meet your own expectations. Did your mind tell you, "I always mess things up," or I'm just not good enough. These words become affirmations of failure, affirmations of scarcity, affirmations of limits. And because the subconscious mind doesn't argue with you, it simply accepts what you feed it. Those repeated phrases become commands. Your inner dialogue programs your reality. Science shows that the human brain is highly plastic. It reshapes itself based on repeated thought patterns. Every time you tell yourself you're not capable, you reinforce a neural pathway that makes it harder to believe in your own potential. Every time you say, "I can't," you build a wall inside your mind. And here's the worst part. That wall becomes so familiar that you forget it was self-constructed. You start to live within it as if it's reality. But here's the truth. Reality is not what you see outside. Reality is what you consistently tell yourself inside. If your self-talk is filled with lack, fear, and self-criticism, your external life will mirror that. On the other hand, when you consciously shift your words to empowerment, possibility, and worthiness, your life shifts to match that vibration. Some people fear that positive self-talk is delusional. They think, if I keep telling myself I'm successful when I'm not, isn't that lying? But let me challenge that. If you keep telling yourself you're a failure when you are capable of greatness, isn't that the real lie? Which lie is more destructive? The one that builds you up toward your vision, or the one that drags you further from it? Negative self-talk sabotages prosperity because it convinces you to settle. It convinces you that the life you dream of is too far away, too unrealistic, too much for someone like you. And when you believe that, you stop taking steps forward. That's how sabotage works. It doesn't need to destroy you completely, it just needs to slow you down enough so you never break through. The shift begins when you become the observer of your own words. Pay attention. Notice when you're tearing yourself down. Notice when you say, "I can't," "I never," "I'm not." Then ask yourself, is this statement really true, or is it just a pattern? Once you recognize it's just a pattern, you can choose a new one. You can replace "I can't" with "I am learning." You can replace "I'm not enough" with "I am growing stronger every day." These aren't empty affirmations. They are conscious commands to your subconscious mind, instructions that create new neural pathways. Negative self-talk often sounds convincing because it borrows the voice of authority figures from your past, a teacher, a parent, a boss, echoing words that once wounded you. Over time, those echoes blend with your own inner voice until you no longer question them. This is how the saboteur operates, by planting borrowed judgments deep enough that you treat them as truth. Yet the reality is that those voices were never the final word on your potential. They were only reflections of someone else's limitations. Unmasking negative self-talk doesn't mean you'll never hear those voices again. It means you'll never mistake them for truth again. And when that happens, you liberate yourself from one of the most subtle saboteurs standing between you and the abundance you deserve. Topic 3. The illusion of waiting for the right time. One of the most deceptive invisible saboteurs is the belief that success and prosperity will begin only when the so-called right time arrives. It's the idea that you'll take action once you feel more prepared, once circumstances align, once you have more money, more support, or more certainty. On the surface, this looks like wisdom. It looks like patience. But in reality, it's an illusion that keeps countless people trapped in a cycle of waiting and waiting and waiting. The right time is a mirage. It moves further away the closer you get to it. Because every time you take a step, the mind invents new reasons why now still isn't perfect. I need more training. I should save a little more. I'll start once the market changes. And so the years pass while the vision stays the same. A dream deferred, always around the corner, but never fully lived. Here's the truth. The conditions of your life will never all line up perfectly. They aren't supposed to. Success isn't about waiting for perfection. It's about creating progress in imperfection. The universe doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards momentum. And momentum only comes when you start, not when you wait. Think of the people you admire, the ones who built prosperity against all odds. Did they wait for the perfect time? Or did they take imperfect action, again and again until it became extraordinary? Behind every story of wealth, achievement, or transformation, you'll find a decision. Not to wait for conditions, but to create them. When you cling to the idea of a right time, What you're really doing is protecting yourself from discomfort. You're telling yourself, I'll start later, because later feels safer than now. But later is a lie. Later becomes never, and never is the graveyard of potential. The illusion of waiting for the right time is powerful because it gives you a false sense of control, as if by delaying, you are being wise and strategic. But in truth, it is often fear wearing the mask of patience. Life rarely offers a moment that feels perfectly safe to begin, and those who prosper are not the ones who wait, but the ones who act while things are still uncertain. The so-called right time is created, not discovered, and it only appears once you've already started moving. So, how do you unmask this saboteur? You recognize that the right time doesn't exist. There is only the time you choose. And if you choose now, you instantly reclaim your power. The minute you start, no matter how small the step, you begin to build momentum. And momentum is magic. It transforms small beginnings into unstoppable progress. Remember this: prosperity is not a destination waiting for you at some perfect point in the future. Prosperity is a path that opens only when you dare to walk it. Right here, right now. Topic 4. The hidden weight of fear of judgment. One of the most crippling invisible saboteurs is the fear of judgment. It is astonishing how much potential, creativity, and prosperity are kept locked away because people are afraid of what others might think. This fear doesn't shout. It whispers in subtle ways. It makes you edit your dreams to make them more acceptable. It convinces you to play small so you don't attract too much attention. It keeps you standing still because moving forward might invite criticism, rejection, or envy. But let's pause here. Whose voice are you actually afraid of? The critics who will never understand you? The friends or relatives who project their own limitations onto your path? Or maybe the collective voice of society that says success and abundance must follow a narrow, predictable formula? The fear of judgment is rarely about reality. It is about the stories we tell ourselves. Think of the opportunities you never seized because of this fear. Did you hold back from speaking up in a meeting, even though you had something valuable to say? Did you delay launching a project because you were worried people would laugh or dismiss it? Did you lower your ambition because you thought others would label you arrogant? Each of these is an act of self-sabotage disguised as caution. And over time, these acts accumulate into a heavy chain that restrains your progress. Here's the truth: people are going to judge you anyway. Whether you succeed or fail, whether you stay silent or speak boldly, someone will always have an opinion. The difference is this: if you let their opinions dictate your choices, you become a prisoner of their expectations. But if you dare to pursue your path despite judgment, you reclaim your freedom. Prosperity requires visibility. You cannot hide and prosper at the same time. Abundance flows to those who show up, who take risks, who step into the arena where judgment lives. The people you admire most, leaders, innovators, creators, all faced criticism, but they didn't let it stop them. They let their vision be louder than the noise. The fear of judgment is heavy because it chains your decisions to the expectations of others, making their opinions louder than your own inner guidance. You rehearse conversations in your head, edit your choices before they are born, and shrink your dreams so they fit neatly into someone else's approval. Yet the truth is that most people are too absorbed in their own struggles to judge you as harshly as you imagine. Prosperity is delayed every time you let imaginary critics sit in the front row of your life. When you unmask this saboteur, you realize something liberating. Judgment is just noise. It only has power if you give it weight. The opinions of others do not pay your bills. They do not live your life, and they do not define your worth. The only judgment that truly matters is your own. Whether you can look in the mirror and say, "I honored my potential today." So the next time fear of judgment tries to stop you, pause and ask, will I allow the shadows of other people's opinions to block the light of my prosperity? Or will I move forward anyway, knowing that abundance comes not to the cautious, but to the courageous? The moment you choose courage over fear, the invisible chain breaks. And in that moment, you step into a higher vibration where success and prosperity can finally find you. Topic 5. The comfort zone. Disguised as safety, perhaps the most subtle of all saboteurs is the comfort zone. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels safe, familiar, even logical. It tells you, why risk what you already have? It convinces you that stability is prosperity, that staying where you are is wiser than reaching for something greater. But make no mistake, the comfort zone is not safety. It is a silent cage that slowly strangles growth, creativity, and abundance. Here's the paradox. The comfort zone pretends to protect you, but in reality, it keeps you stuck. You trade possibilities for predictability, vision for routine, expansion for repetition. And because nothing seems wrong, you don't see the sabotage happening. Your life looks fine on the surface, but deep inside, a part of you knows something is missing. That uneasiness, that quiet dissatisfaction, is your spirit reminding you that safety without growth is not prosperity. Think about it. How many people do you know who had big dreams once, but settled for good enough? They got comfortable in a job, in a lifestyle, in a routine, and told themselves it was safer to stay. But years later, they feel restless, unfulfilled, wondering where the spark went. This is the trap of the comfort zone. It doesn't kill you quickly, it numbs you slowly. And numbness is the enemy of prosperity. Prosperity requires stretching. It requires stepping into uncertainty, trying things that scare you, doing what feels uncomfortable until it becomes normal. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort, and prosperity is nothing more than growth multiplied over time. The people you admire didn't find wealth and abundance inside comfort. They found it when they dared to step beyond it. The invisible saboteur of the comfort zone is powerful because it is disguised as wisdom. Friends and family will even reinforce it. Don't take risks. Be realistic. Stick with what you know. But behind those words is fear. Fear of change, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. If you accept their fear as your truth, you join them in the prison of sameness. The comfort zone feels safe because it avoids risk. But what it really avoids is growth. It convinces you that staying where you are is stability, when in truth, it is slow decline. The longer you remain in that false safety, the more restless your spirit becomes, because you were never meant to live in repetition. You were meant to expand. Prosperity does not bloom in soil that never changes. It requires the courage to step into unfamiliar territory where your potential can finally take root. To unmask this saboteur, you have to see comfort for what it is, not safety, but stagnation. Ask yourself, am I growing or am I just maintaining? If your days look the same, if your goals never stretch you, if your vision doesn't scare you a little, then you are not in safety. You are in sabotage. The irony is that real safety comes from growth. The more skills you build, the more courage you practice, the more risks you learn to take, the stronger and safer you actually become. The comfort zone weakens you by keeping you small. Stepping out of it strengthens you by expanding your capacity. So, the choice is clear. Stay in the false safety of comfort and sabotage your own prosperity, or step into discomfort and unlock the abundance waiting for you. The invisible cage opens the moment you dare to leave it. And when you do, you realize that safety was never the goal. Freedom, growth, and prosperity were. Topic 6. The invisible chains of limiting beliefs. There is no saboteur more deeply rooted, more insidious than limiting beliefs. These are not just passing thoughts. They are convictions, buried deep within the subconscious, that shape how you see yourself and the world. A limiting belief is like a lens on your mind. You don't notice it's there, but everything you see is filtered through it. And because you don't question it, you accept it as reality. What are limiting beliefs? They are those quiet statements that feel so true, you don't even challenge them. I'm not good with money. Success is for other people, not me. I'll never escape my past. People like me can't have abundance. These phrases may have been inherited from parents, absorbed from society, or built from painful experiences. And once they take root, they operate silently, dictating your choices without you even realizing it. Here's the dangerous part. The subconscious mind is designed to confirm what you already believe. If you think prosperity is out of reach, your mind will filter out opportunities that prove otherwise. If you believe success requires struggle, you will unconsciously create struggle even when an easier path is available. This is why so many people live the same patterns over and over again, because their beliefs keep recreating the same script. Think of a person who grew up hearing, "Money is evil." As an adult, they may consciously want prosperity, but deep inside, they associate wealth with guilt or corruption. So every time they start to build financial success, they sabotage it. Overspending, quitting too soon, making risky decisions. Because deep down, they don't feel safe with money. The belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the truth. Beliefs are not facts. They are stories, conclusions, interpretations that can be rewritten. The moment you bring a limiting belief into the light of awareness, you weaken its power. And when you replace it with an empowering belief, you give your subconscious new instructions, new scripts that attract prosperity instead of rejecting it. Limiting beliefs are dangerous because they feel like facts. You repeat them so often. I'm not good with money. I don't deserve success. People like me never get ahead. That they harden into unquestioned truths. Yet these are not laws of the universe. They are stories, inherited from family, culture, or past experiences that you've unknowingly carried as if they were absolute. The moment you challenge them, you realize the chains were never locked. They were only illusions that dissolved the instant you dared to test them. How do you unmask this saboteur? Start by listening to your inner dialogue. Pay attention to the absolutes. I always, I never, I can't. These phrases reveal the beliefs running your life. Then, challenge them. Ask yourself, is this absolutely true? Or is this just a story I've been carrying? More often than not, you'll discover that your belief is just a borrowed opinion, a memory, a cultural imprint, not an unshakable reality. When you reprogram your beliefs, you reprogram your destiny. Because beliefs shape behavior, behavior creates habits, and habits create results. If you want prosperity, you must plant beliefs that support prosperity. Beliefs like, I am worthy of success. Money is a tool for good. Opportunities are abundant and always flowing to me. These are not empty phrases. They are mental seeds, and what you plant consistently will grow. The invisible saboteur of limiting beliefs loses its grip the moment you realize you are the gardener of your mind. You decide which seeds stay and which ones get pulled out. The weeds of scarcity do not vanish overnight, but each time you replace one with a belief of abundance, you reclaim another piece of your power. And soon, the invisible chains break, and you step into the freedom of knowing that prosperity was never outside of you. It was always a reflection of what you believed within. Topic 7. The trap of perfectionism. Perfectionism may look noble on the surface, but it is one of the most deceptive invisible saboteurs of success and prosperity. It disguises itself as high standards, as commitment to excellence, as attention to detail. But underneath the polished mask, perfectionism is driven by fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of not being enough. And that fear keeps you stuck in endless preparation, endless hesitation, and endless delay. Think about how many times you delayed starting something because it wasn't ready yet. The book you never wrote because the outline wasn't perfect. The business you never launched because the plan wasn't flawless. The opportunities you missed because you were waiting to feel more prepared. Perfectionism convinces you that you are improving, when in fact, you are avoiding. It tells you to polish, revise, and overthink, while the real opportunity slips away. The truth is, perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many details you refine, there will always be something more to fix, something more to adjust. And if you wait until everything is flawless, you will wait forever. Meanwhile, those who dare to start imperfectly move forward, gain experience, and grow into excellence. Prosperity is never created in theory. It is created in action. The invisible danger of perfectionism is that it robs you of momentum. Momentum is the engine of prosperity. Small, imperfect steps, taken consistently, create progress, and progress compounds into results. But when perfectionism rules you, you take no steps at all, and no steps mean no progress. Worse, perfectionism convinces you that not moving is safer, when in reality it is the most dangerous form of sabotage because it leaves you standing still while life moves on without you. Now, think about this. The people you admire, the entrepreneurs, the leaders, the visionaries, did they begin with perfection? No, they began with boldness. Their first product, first speech, first attempt was often messy, unrefined, incomplete. But because they started, they learned. Because they learned, they improved. And because they improved, they eventually reached mastery. Perfection wasn't the beginning of their prosperity. It was the result of action repeated over time. Perfectionism pretends to protect you from failure, but in reality, it prevents you from ever finishing. By demanding flawless results before you even begin, it keeps you stuck in endless revisions, chasing an unattainable standard. This saboteur thrives on convincing you that not ready is the same as not worthy. But prosperity doesn't reward endless preparation. It rewards progress, momentum, and the willingness to refine as you move forward. So how do you unmask this saboteur? You remind yourself that done is better than perfect. You remind yourself that flaws are not failures. They are feedback. Every mistake is data. Every misstep is growth. Every imperfection is a stepping stone toward mastery. When you embrace imperfection, you liberate yourself from paralysis. You give yourself permission to begin, to try, to explore, to risk. Perfectionism loses its power the moment you decide that progress matters more than polish. The day you choose momentum over hesitation is the day prosperity begins to flow. Because prosperity doesn't reward the perfect, it rewards the courageous, the consistent, the ones who show up despite their flaws. Remember this, your imperfect action today is infinitely more valuable than the perfect action you never take. Topic 8. The saboteur of comparison. Comparison is one of the most silent but poisonous saboteurs of prosperity. It creeps into your mind when you scroll through social media, when you hear about someone else's promotion, when you see a friend buy a new car or travel the world. Suddenly, your own progress feels small, your own blessings seem insufficient, and your path feels inadequate. Comparison convinces you that prosperity is measured not by your growth, but by how you measure up against others. But here's the trap. Comparison distorts reality. You never see the full picture of someone else's life. You see their highlight reel, their polished results, the part they want to show the world. You don't see their doubts, their failures, their debts, their sleepless nights. And yet, you compare your behind the scenes to their curated stage. That is not reality. It is illusion. And illusions are the breeding ground of sabotage. Think about how comparison robs you of energy. Instead of focusing on your own goals, you waste time measuring yourself against someone else's journey. Instead of celebrating your progress, you diminish it because it doesn't look like theirs. And in doing so, you sabotage your momentum. Prosperity thrives on gratitude and focus, but comparison erodes both. The truth is, prosperity is not a competition. The universe is abundant, overflowing with opportunities. One person's success does not reduce your chances. In fact, it expands them by proving what is possible. When someone else rises, it is evidence that you can rise too. But when you see their rise as a threat instead of an inspiration, you shrink instead of expand. Comparison is also dangerous because it breeds envy. And envy is heavy. It pulls your vibration into scarcity. You cannot envy and prosper at the same time because envy says, I don't have enough, while prosperity says, I have more than enough. To live in envy is to live in lack. To live in gratitude is to live in abundance. Comparison is toxic because it shifts your focus from creation to competition. Instead of pouring energy into building your unique path, you waste it measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. The saboteur whispers that you are always behind, always lacking, always missing something. But prosperity cannot grow in a mind consumed by envy. It grows in the soil of authenticity, where your energy is invested in becoming the fullest version of yourself. So how do you unmask this saboteur? By redirecting your focus inward. Ask yourself, am I further than I was yesterday? Am I growing in ways that matter to me? That is the only comparison that counts. You versus your past self. When you track your own growth, when you honor your own path, you free yourself from the toxic loop of measuring up. Every time comparison whispers in your ear, counter it with gratitude. Celebrate what you have, no matter how small. Acknowledge your wins, even if they are invisible to others. Gratitude disarms comparison because it shifts your focus from lack to abundance. And in that shift, prosperity flows again. Remember this, you are not here to compete. You are here to create. The world doesn't need another version of someone else. It needs the fullest version of you. And when you stop comparing, you start creating. And in creation, prosperity multiplies. Topic 9. The saboteur of procrastination. Procrastination is often mistaken for laziness, but it is not laziness. It is fear wearing the mask of delay. It is the quiet, invisible saboteur that convinces you that tomorrow is a better day to act, that later is safer than now, that waiting will somehow make things easier. But procrastination is not neutral. It is corrosive. Every day you postpone action, you reinforce hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. And without momentum, prosperity never has a chance to arrive. Think about how many times you told yourself, "I'll start on Monday. I'll send that email tomorrow. I'll begin once I feel ready." Did tomorrow ever feel easier? Did readiness ever suddenly appear? Or did tomorrow turn into another tomorrow, and then another, until weeks or months slipped away? This is the invisible trap of procrastination. It promises relief, but delivers regret. The danger of procrastination is that it tricks you into believing you still have time. But time is the one resource you never get back. Money lost can be regained, opportunities missed can sometimes reappear, but a day wasted is gone forever. And when you waste enough days, you waste years. Years of potential, years of growth, years of prosperity that could have been built if only you had acted sooner. Here's the truth. Procrastination feeds on perfectionism and fear. You delay because you fear failure, because you fear judgment, because you fear discomfort. But ironically, the longer you delay, the stronger the fear becomes. Action shrinks fear, but procrastination multiplies it. That is why people who procrastinate feel heavier and more paralyzed the longer they wait. The saboteur is tightening its grip. Procrastination tricks you with the promise of tomorrow, but tomorrow rarely arrives the way you imagine. Each delay creates a quiet erosion of confidence, because deep down, you know you are betraying your own potential. This saboteur thrives by making small delays feel harmless, yet those tiny choices compound into years of missed opportunities. Prosperity is never built in the future. It is built in the decisions you act on today. The way to unmask this saboteur is to break the illusion of later. Later doesn't exist. There is only now. And the smallest action taken now is infinitely more powerful than the biggest action you plan for someday. Write one sentence, make one call, take one step. Small actions compound, but no action compounds nothing. Prosperity favors movement. When you move, opportunities appear. When you act, energy flows. When you decide, the universe aligns. But when you wait, doors close, energy stagnates, and your vision fades. That is why procrastination is so dangerous, because it doesn't destroy with a loud crash, it erodes silently with delay after delay. So, the next time procrastination whispers, "Do it later," remind yourself, later is a lie. Later is the dream killer. Later is the saboteur. And the only way to defeat it is to act now, imperfectly, courageously, consistently, because now is where prosperity lives, and now is where your future is built. Topic 10. The saboteur of scarcity thinking. Scarcity thinking is one of the most pervasive invisible saboteurs because it feels like common sense. It tells you there is not enough money, not enough opportunities, not enough time, not enough resources. It convinces you that life is a competition where everyone else's gain must be your loss. And when you live from scarcity, every decision is made from fear. Every action is rooted in survival, and every possibility is filtered through the belief that abundance is limited. This mindset is dangerous because it shapes your entire reality. If you believe there is never enough, your brain begins to look only for evidence that supports that story. You notice every bill, every expense, every setback. You magnify problems and minimize blessings, and without realizing it, you sabotage your ability to see opportunities that could bring prosperity. Scarcity blinds you to abundance. Think about how scarcity thinking shows up in everyday life. You hesitate to invest in yourself because you're afraid of losing money. You avoid sharing knowledge or contacts because you think others might get ahead of you. You stay in toxic jobs or relationships because you fear there won't be a better chance. Scarcity convinces you that holding tightly is safer, when in reality, it's the very thing that keeps your hands too closed to receive more. But here is the truth. Abundance is not a limited pie to be divided. The universe is not running out of wealth, ideas, opportunities, or success. Prosperity multiplies. It expands as people expand. When someone else wins, it doesn't reduce your share. It increases the collective possibilities. Scarcity says, "There isn't enough for me." Abundance says, there is more than enough for all of us. Which one do you choose to believe? Scarcity thinking blinds you by focusing only on what's missing, narrowing your vision until possibilities disappear. It convinces you to compete for crumbs instead of creating new opportunities, making you believe that someone else's gain is automatically your loss. This saboteur keeps you trapped in survival mode, unable to see that abundance multiplies when it is shared. Prosperity cannot flow into a closed fist. It requires an open hand and a mind willing to see more than limitation. To unmask this saboteur, you must rewire the way you think about life. Instead of asking, "What if I lose?" ask, "What can I gain?" Instead of saying, "I can't afford this," say, "How can I afford this?" Instead of fearing there's not enough, remind yourself that opportunities are infinite, creativity is limitless, and wealth flows where it is welcomed. Gratitude is the antidote to scarcity. Every time you acknowledge what you already have, you weaken the voice of lack. Gratitude tells the universe, "I see the abundance already present in my life, and I am ready for more." And when you combine gratitude with action, prosperity follows. Remember this, scarcity is not reality. It is a belief. And like every belief, it can be changed. The moment you shift from scarcity to abundance, the saboteur loses its grip. You stop competing and you start creating. You stop surviving and you start thriving. Scarcity locks the door to prosperity, but abundance hands you the key. Topic 11. The saboteur of lack of focus. Focus is the bridge between vision and reality. Without it, dreams dissolve into distraction, and prosperity slips through your fingers like water. One of the most destructive invisible saboteurs is the lack of focus, because it doesn't show up as a clear enemy. It hides behind busyness, behind multitasking, behind the endless noise of modern life. It makes you feel productive while it quietly robs you of the energy and clarity required to achieve true success. Think about how many times you've started something with excitement only to get pulled in a dozen directions. You open your laptop to work on your goals, and suddenly you're checking emails, scrolling through social media, answering messages, and by the end of the day, the thing that mattered most is untouched. That is the sabotage of distraction. It steals your future one small interruption at a time. The lack of focus is dangerous because it creates the illusion of progress. You feel busy, but busy is not the same as effective. Prosperity is not built on scattered energy. It is built on concentrated intention. Every distraction divides your power, every unfinished task drains your momentum, and every scattered day pushes your dreams further away. Here's the truth. Success doesn't belong to the person who does the most. It belongs to the person who focuses on what matters most. Prosperity flows to those who direct their energy with precision, who can shut out the noise and give their full attention to the few actions that truly move the needle. The world is full of talented people who never prosper, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked focus. Lack of focus steals prosperity not by stopping you outright, but by scattering your progress so thin that nothing takes root. This saboteur distracts you with endless side tasks, false urgencies, and shiny opportunities that pull you off course. You may feel busy, but busyness is not the same as effectiveness. True prosperity requires concentrated energy, because what you give your full attention to inevitably expands. So, how do you unmask this saboteur? You reclaim your attention as your most valuable currency. You set boundaries with your time. You decide which distractions are denied access to your energy. You ask yourself daily, what is the one action today that will bring me closer to prosperity? And then you protect that action like it is sacred, because it is. Clarity is the antidote to distraction. When you are clear on what you want and why you want it, focus becomes natural. The more you align your daily actions with your vision, the less room distraction has to sabotage you. Prosperity requires discipline. The discipline to say no to the trivial, so you can say yes to the essential. Remember this, your attention shapes your reality. If you scatter it, your results scatter. If you focus it, your results multiply. Lack of focus is a silent saboteur, but awareness turns the tide. The day you choose focus over distraction, you choose prosperity over mediocrity. Topic 12. The saboteur of comforting excuses. Excuses are one of the most seductive saboteurs because they feel so reasonable. They arrive dressed as logic, disguised as practicality, wrapped in the language of not now, not me, or not possible. Excuses don't shout, they soothe. They say, "You've had a long day. You deserve to rest. You don't have the right resources yet. Wait until conditions improve. You're not ready. Give it more time." And while they sound comforting, excuses slowly eat away at your dreams, leaving prosperity always just out of reach. Excuses are dangerous because they protect your ego in the short term while destroying your future in the long term. They prevent you from confronting discomfort, from risking failure, from facing the unknown. And yet, each time you believe them, you reinforce the habit of giving up before you even start. Excuses feel safe, but they are silent permission slips for sabotage. Think of how many people explain their lack of prosperity with excuses. "I can't start a business because I don't have enough money. I can't get healthy because I don't have time. I can't chase my dream because my circumstances won't allow it." These statements feel like facts, but they are really stories. Stories that allow comfort to replace courage. And as long as those stories are repeated, action is delayed, progress is halted, and prosperity is postponed. Here's the truth. Everyone has excuses available to them. The difference between those who prosper and those who don't is simple. Some choose excuses, others choose action. The person who succeeds doesn't succeed because conditions were perfect. They succeed because they refused to let excuses rule them. They found a way forward despite the obstacles, and that decision changed everything. Excuses soothe you in the moment because they offer justification without requiring change. But beneath that comfort lies stagnation. This saboteur convinces you that circumstances are always stronger than your will, allowing you to trade responsibility for temporary relief. Over time, those excuses pile up into invisible walls, limiting how far you allow yourself to go. Prosperity can't enter where excuses stand guard. It only flows when you dismantle them with honesty and decisive action. To unmask this saboteur, you must strip excuses of their disguise. When you hear yourself saying, "I can't because," pause and ask, "Is this really true? Or is this just a story I'm telling myself?" More often than not, you'll find it's a story of fear, not fact. And once you recognize it as a story, you can choose a new one that empowers action instead of delaying it. Excuses lose their power the moment you realize that even the smallest step forward is stronger than the biggest excuse. You don't need perfect conditions, unlimited resources, or flawless timing. You need willingness. You need courage. You need to act with what you have, where you are, right now. Remember this: excuses are comfortable, but comfort doesn't create prosperity. Courage does. Action does. Commitment does. The day you stop feeding excuses is the day you start feeding success. And prosperity, at its core, is always fed by action, never by excuses. Topic 13. The saboteur of fear of failure. Fear of failure is one of the most powerful saboteurs because it disguises itself as protection. It tells you, "Don't try, because if you fail, you'll be humiliated. Don't risk it, because if it doesn't work out, you'll waste your time." It makes you believe that avoiding action is safer than facing the possibility of defeat. But in truth, the fear of failure is not protecting you. It is imprisoning you. Think of how many dreams have died, not because people lacked talent, but because they never even tried. The fear of failure whispers that it's better to stay comfortable than to risk falling short. And yet, what is failure really? Failure is not the end. Failure is feedback. It is information. It is the universe showing you what doesn't work so you can find what does. But when fear convinces you to avoid trying, you rob yourself of the very lessons that lead to mastery. The danger of fearing failure is that it becomes self-fulfilling. By avoiding risk, you guarantee stagnation. By refusing to try, you guarantee defeat. Ironically, the very thing you fear most, failure, becomes inevitable if you let the fear control you. Because true failure is not falling down. True failure is refusing to rise. Think about the people you admire, the innovators, the leaders, the creators. Every single one of them failed, often repeatedly. They stumbled, they lost, they struggled, but they kept moving. They learned, they adapted, they grew. Their prosperity was not built on avoiding failure. It was built on transforming failure into stepping stones. They understood that every no brought them closer to a yes. Every setback brought them closer to success. The fear of failure thrives on distortion. making every potential misstep look like disaster and every risk feel fatal to your future. This saboteur paralyzes you by equating mistakes with shame, convincing you that falling short defines who you are. But failure is not the end. It is information, feedback, a necessary teacher on the path to prosperity. Those who rise are not the ones who never fail, but the ones who refuse to let failure have the final word. So how do you unmask this saboteur? By redefining failure itself. Stop seeing it as an ending and start seeing it as part of the process. When you detach your worth from your results, failure loses its sting. You are not your mistakes. You are the lessons you extract from them. And each time you rise after a setback, you build resilience, courage, and strength. Prosperity does not belong to those who never fail. It belongs to those who refuse to quit. Abundance is not given to the cautious. It is given to the bold. The moment you decide that failure is not your enemy, but your teacher, you strip fear of its disguise. And when fear no longer rules you, nothing can stop you from stepping fully into your potential. Remember this, the only true failure is refusing to try. Everything else is progress, disguised as experience. When you embrace that truth, the invisible saboteur of fear of failure dissolves, and the path to prosperity opens wide before you. Topic 14. The saboteur of overthinking. Overthinking is one of the cleverest invisible saboteurs because it disguises itself as intelligence. It makes you feel as if you're being wise, careful, and strategic. You analyze every possibility, calculate every risk, imagine every outcome. And while you're busy thinking, life is busy moving on without you. Overthinking doesn't create clarity. It creates paralysis. It convinces you that you need more information before you act, more certainty before you decide, more guarantees before you leap. And in waiting for perfect clarity, you miss the opportunities that only reveal themselves through action. Think of how many times you replayed a decision in your mind, weighing every angle, asking for endless advice, reading countless articles, only to end up in the same place, undecided, motionless, still stuck. Overthinking feels productive, but it is really disguised procrastination. It burns your energy without moving you forward, leaving you exhausted but unchanged. The danger of overthinking is that it magnifies fear. The more you analyze, the more reasons you invent to stay where you are. You don't just imagine what could go right, you obsess over everything that could go wrong. And your imagination, instead of being the engine of creativity, becomes the weapon of sabotage. Here's the truth, you will never have 100% certainty. Life doesn't work that way. Every decision carries risk. Every path contains unknowns. But clarity comes from movement, not from endless thought. When you act, you learn. When you decide, you create direction. When you move, the fog begins to lift. But when you overthink, you stay stuck in circles, confusing motion of the mind with motion of life. The people who prosper are not the ones who had all the answers in advance. They are the ones who acted, learned, adjusted, and acted again. They trusted themselves enough to move forward with incomplete information. And because they moved, they discovered answers that overthinking alone could never give. Overthinking drains prosperity by trapping you in endless loops of analysis where no action ever escapes. This saboteur convinces you that the more you think, the safer you'll be, when in truth, it only feeds doubt and magnifies fear. Instead of moving forward, you replay the same scenarios, exhausting your energy without creating results. Prosperity never comes from mental circles. It comes from courageous steps taken even when the path ahead is unclear. So, how do you unmask this saboteur? You stop asking, what if it goes wrong? And start asking, what if it goes right? You recognize that indecision is also a decision to stay the same. And the cost of staying the same is far higher than the cost of making a mistake. Mistakes can be corrected, stagnation cannot. Overthinking loses its grip when you learn to value progress over perfection, courage over certainty, movement over analysis. The key is to trust that you are resourceful enough to handle whatever comes, even if it's unexpected. Because prosperity doesn't belong to those who think the most. It belongs to those who act with faith, adjust with wisdom, and keep moving forward. Topic 15. The saboteur of fear of success. Most people talk about fear of failure, but few recognize the equally powerful fear of success. At first, it sounds strange. Why would anyone fear the very thing they claim to want? But fear of success is real, and it is one of the most invisible saboteurs because it hides behind doubts like, what if I can't maintain it? What if people expect too much from me? What if success changes me or makes others resent me? Instead of fearing the fall, you fear the rise. This fear shows up when you self-sabotage just as things begin to go well. You finally start gaining momentum in your business, and suddenly you lose motivation. You begin to attract opportunities, and suddenly you hesitate or back away. You receive recognition, and instead of celebrating, you feel guilty, unworthy, or afraid of the pressure. Fear of success convinces you that prosperity is dangerous, that it comes with too heavy a cost, that staying small is somehow safer. But here's the truth. Success doesn't create pressure. It reveals it. Whatever insecurities you carry will follow you into abundance. If you believe you are unworthy, prosperity will trigger that belief. If you fear rejection, visibility will amplify that fear. The problem is not success itself. The problem is the story you attach to success. And that story determines whether you embrace prosperity or sabotage it. Think of the people who suddenly withdrew when their careers began to flourish. They didn't disappear because they lacked ability. They disappeared because they feared what prosperity would demand of them. But prosperity doesn't demand that you become someone else. It asks that you become more of who you really are. Success doesn't distort you. It magnifies you. And if you approach it with awareness, it magnifies your courage, your generosity, and your true potential. The fear of success sabotages you by making abundance feel unsafe, as if prosperity will demand more than you can handle or separate you from the people you love. This saboteur whispers that success will cost your freedom, your relationships, or your peace of mind, so you unconsciously slow down or hold back. But success does not create chains. It creates choices. Prosperity only magnifies what already exists, and when you embrace it with clarity, it becomes a force that expands your life rather than diminishes it. To unmask this saboteur, you must rewrite the meaning of success. Instead of associating it with pressure, loss, or resentment, associate it with growth, contribution, and expansion. See success as a tool for good, a way to create more impact, more freedom, more possibilities. Ask yourself, what if my success inspires others instead of intimidating them? What if prosperity allows me to give more, not lose more? These shifts dismantle the fear and open the door to abundance. Remember this, success will not turn you into someone you are not. It will simply expand the stage on which you show who you are. If you carry fear, it will show. If you carry courage, it will shine. And when you choose to embrace success without fear, you step into the highest version of yourself, the one prosperity has been waiting to meet. Topic 16. The saboteur of impatience. Impatience is one of the most deceptive saboteurs because it wears the disguise of ambition. It tells you that if prosperity doesn't come quickly, it isn't working. It whispers, "You've been trying for weeks, why aren't you rich yet?" Or, "If this path were really meant for you, it would be faster." At first, impatience feels like drive, but in reality, it is discouragement dressed as urgency. And when you let impatience control your decisions, you quit too soon, abandon processes that were about to pay off, and sabotage long-term prosperity for short-term relief. Think of how many seeds never sprouted simply because someone stopped watering them too early. Prosperity works the same way. You plant actions, habits, and intentions into your life, but they take time to grow. If you dig them up every week to check if they're working, you interrupt the process. Impatience kills the harvest before it has a chance to ripen. The truth is, every form of success requires time. Muscles don't grow in a day, businesses don't flourish in a week, and wealth doesn't accumulate overnight. Growth follows cycles, and prosperity rewards persistence. But impatience convinces you to measure progress only by speed. And when you don't see quick results, you label yourself a failure, even though success was just around the corner. The danger of impatience is that it pushes you toward shortcuts. You chase get-rich-quick schemes, jump from one opportunity to another, abandon discipline for instant gratification. And shortcuts rarely lead to abundance. They lead to disappointment. True prosperity is not built on rushing. It is built on consistency. Impatience robs you of prosperity by making you abandon the process before it has time to bear fruit. This saboteur convinces you that speed is proof of success, when in truth, depth and consistency are what create lasting abundance. It lures you into chasing shortcuts and quick fixes that collapse as fast as they appear. Prosperity honors endurance, not haste, and the rewards always go to those who trust the timing of growth more than the illusion of instant results. So how do you unmask this saboteur? By remembering that patience is not passive, it is active trust. Patience says, I am moving forward, even if results are not visible yet. Patience recognizes that roots grow before fruit shows. The invisible work always comes before the visible rewards. When you embrace patience, you release the pressure of timelines and focus instead on steady, daily action. Think of bamboo. It spends years growing underground before it breaks the surface. And when it finally emerges, it shoots up rapidly, stronger than most plants. Prosperity often works the same way. Long seasons of unseen growth, followed by breakthroughs that seem sudden to everyone else, but are really the fruit of persistence. Impatience loses its power when you honor the process more than the pace. When you trust that what you are building will reward you in time, you stop sabotaging yourself with frustration. Prosperity comes not to those who rush, but to those who persist. Because in persistence, you prove that your vision is stronger than your timeline, and the universe rewards that strength with abundance. Topic 17. The saboteur of living in the past. One of the most paralyzing invisible saboteurs is the tendency to live in the past. It convinces you that because you failed once, you will fail again. It whispers that the pain of yesterday is proof that tomorrow cannot be different. It makes you carry memories like chains, replaying old mistakes, old betrayals, old losses, until your present becomes nothing more than a shadow of your history. And when you live in the past, you cannot step into prosperity because your energy is trapped in what no longer exists. Think of how many people define themselves by what already happened. I am the one who lost everything. I am the one who was betrayed. I am the one who failed before. These identities feel real, but they are illusions that sabotage growth. Your past is not your identity. It is only your experience. It shaped you, but it does not define you. The danger is not in having a past, but in mistaking it for your destiny. Living in the past is dangerous because it steals the power of the present. The present is the only moment where change can happen, where decisions are made, where action creates results. But if your mind is always replaying yesterday, you miss the opportunities of today. You sabotage your prosperity not because you cannot succeed, but because you are too busy reliving what went wrong instead of creating what could go right. Here's the truth. Your past is a teacher, not a prison. Every mistake carried a lesson. Every loss carried wisdom. Every wound carried an opportunity to heal. The past can guide you, but it should never govern you. When you allow old stories to dictate your choices, you become a prisoner of time. But when you extract the lesson and release the pain, you become free to build something new. Prosperity requires presence. It requires you to stand in this moment with clarity and courage. You cannot drive a car by staring only in the rearview mirror, and you cannot create a prosperous future by staring only at your past. The more attention you give to what's behind you, the less energy you have for what lies ahead. Living in the past drains your prosperity because it binds your identity to outdated versions of yourself. This saboteur convinces you that yesterday's mistakes are permanent definitions instead of temporary lessons. By replaying old pain, you give energy to what no longer exists, leaving little strength to build what could be. Prosperity can only be created in the present moment, and the past loses its grip the instant you choose to stop carrying it forward. To unmask this saboteur, you must consciously decide, I am not my past. I am my possibility. Every time the past rises to pull you back, remind yourself, that story is finished. I am writing a new one. Prosperity flows not to those who cling to yesterday, but to those who step fully into today. Remember this, the past is over, the future is unwritten, and the present is your canvas. What you paint on it today becomes your prosperity tomorrow. Don't waste it by replaying old scenes. Choose to create new ones. Scenes of growth, abundance, and freedom. Topic 18. The saboteur of people-pleasing. One of the most invisible saboteurs of prosperity is the need to please others. On the surface, it looks like kindness, generosity, or being a good person. But beneath the surface, people-pleasing is often fear disguised as virtue. It is the fear of rejection, the fear of disapproval, the fear that if you say no, you will lose love or acceptance. And so, instead of living from authenticity, you live from obligation. Instead of pursuing your prosperity, you prioritize the comfort and expectations of others. The problem is not kindness itself. Kindness is powerful. The problem is when kindness becomes compliance, when you sacrifice your vision to maintain someone else's comfort. People-pleasing convinces you that success will come if everyone likes you, if no one is offended, if you never make waves. But the truth is, prosperity and people-pleasing rarely coexist. Prosperity requires boldness, boundaries, and the courage to say no when necessary. Think of how much energy is wasted on trying to be everything for everyone. You say yes to commitments that drain you. You take on responsibilities that aren't yours. You silence your truth to avoid conflict. And while you're busy pleasing others, your own dreams sit neglected, gathering dust. Prosperity demands focus, but people-pleasing scatters your energy in 100 directions that never serve your higher calling. The danger of this saboteur is that it makes you believe you're being selfless, when in fact, you're sabotaging yourself. True service to others doesn't come from burnout, resentment, or self-denial. It comes from strength, clarity, and overflow. You cannot give your best to others if you're constantly betraying yourself. People-pleasing drains prosperity by scattering your energy in directions that serve everyone but you. This saboteur convinces you that saying yes keeps the peace, when in reality it builds silent resentment and leaves your own dreams starving for attention. Every time you compromise your vision to maintain someone else's comfort, you weaken your ability to live in alignment. Prosperity requires courage, and courage often looks like saying no to others so you can finally say yes to yourself. To unmask this saboteur, you must learn the power of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They allow the right energy in and keep the draining energy out. Saying no does not make you selfish. It makes you wise. Every no to what distracts you is a yes to your vision, your prosperity, and your authentic path. Remember this, prosperity is not built by those who live for approval, but by those who live for alignment. You were not born to be universally liked. You were born to be fully alive. And when you step out of the prison of people-pleasing, you step into the freedom to create, to expand, and to prosper, not from fear, but from truth. Topic 19. The saboteur of chasing too many paths. One of the most subtle, invisible saboteurs of prosperity is the habit of chasing too many paths at once. On the surface, it feels like ambition, curiosity, or being multi-talented. You tell yourself that by pursuing everything, you increase your chances of success. But in reality, this constant scattering of energy keeps you from going deep enough in any one direction to truly prosper. You end up busy, but not effective, moving, but not progressing. Prosperity doesn't come from dipping your toes into 10 different streams. It comes from channeling your energy like a river, focused, powerful, unstoppable. When you chase too many opportunities, you sabotage yourself by spreading your attention too thin. Each project gets a fraction of your potential, and none reach their full possibility. Think of how many people you know who start something with excitement, a business idea, a course, a creative project, but abandon it halfway because another better opportunity came along. They jump from one thing to the next, never finishing, never committing. This pattern feels like movement, but it is really avoidance. It's a way of hiding from the discipline required to see one vision through to completion. The danger of this saboteur is that it drains your most valuable resource, focus. Focus is the multiplier of prosperity. With focus, even small efforts become powerful. Without it, even massive effort is diluted. Chasing too many paths creates the illusion of productivity, but the reality of exhaustion. And exhaustion kills the consistency that prosperity requires. Here's the truth. You don't need 100 doors to open. You only need the right one. And often, the right door will only open after you've knocked long enough and consistently enough. But if you keep leaving the hallway to try other doors, you'll never stay long enough to discover the one that was about to open. Chasing too many paths robs you of prosperity by scattering your strength across ventures that never reach maturity. This saboteur seduces you with novelty. convincing you that the next idea will surely be the one, while the work already in your hands is abandoned. In truth, abundance is unlocked not by chasing everything, but by committing deeply to something until mastery transforms effort into reward. Prosperity flows where focus is planted and nurtured, not where attention is constantly uprooted. To unmask this saboteur, you must learn the discipline of commitment. Commitment doesn't mean you never explore. It means that once you've chosen a path aligned with your vision, you give it your full energy. You push past boredom, past distraction, past the shiny temptation of something new. You stay, you build, you master. And mastery is what prosperity rewards. Remember this: the person who chases 2 rabbits catches none, and the person who chases 10 catches nothing but exhaustion. Prosperity is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters with intensity and persistence. Choose your path, focus your energy, and watch how fast abundance flows when it is no longer scattered but concentrated. Topic 20. The final saboteur: forgetting your own power. Perhaps the most devastating of all invisible saboteurs is forgetting your own power. Every other sabotage we've uncovered – fear, procrastination, perfectionism, comfort, distraction, impatience, comparison – all gain their strength from this one truth. You forget that you are the creator of your reality. You forget that your thoughts shape your world, that your beliefs set the limits of your experience, that your choices carve the path of your prosperity. And when you forget this, you hand your life over to circumstances instead of shaping them yourself. Forgetting your power shows up in subtle ways. You wait for luck instead of creating opportunities. You blame others instead of taking responsibility. You convince yourself that external conditions, the economy, your background, other people, control your destiny. But prosperity has never been about external control. It has always been about internal alignment. The danger of forgetting your power is that it makes you a victim of life, when in truth, you are its author. Victimhood is seductive because it removes responsibility. If life is happening to you, then you are not to blame. But the cost of that illusion is enormous. You lose your freedom to change. You give away the pen that writes your story. Here's the truth: you are not powerless. You are profoundly powerful. You carry within you the ability to reframe, to redirect, to rebuild. You can choose new thoughts, new actions, new habits, new visions. And every time you choose differently, you alter the trajectory of your life. Prosperity is not an accident. It is a choice repeated daily with courage and conviction. Forgetting your own power is the most dangerous sabotage because it convinces you that life is happening to you rather than through you. This saboteur blinds you to the creative force within, making you wait for permission, luck, or rescue when the truth is that you are the source of transformation. The moment you remember your power, every excuse loses its grip and every obstacle shrinks before your will. Prosperity begins the instant you reclaim authorship of your life and choose to live as the creator you were always meant to be. Think of the people who rise from nothing to abundance, who overcome obstacles that seemed impossible. What separates them is not luck, not privilege, not circumstances. It is the refusal to forget their power. They remember that they are creators, not victims. They remember that the universe responds not to fear, but to faith. They remember that every small act of alignment compounds into great prosperity. To unmask this final saboteur, you must remind yourself daily: I am not powerless. I am the architect of my destiny. Write it, say it, live it. Because every time you act from power, you dismantle fear. Every time you reclaim responsibility, you reclaim freedom. And every time you stand in your power, prosperity flows to meet you. Remember this: the greatest sabotage is forgetting who you are. The greatest prosperity is remembering. And when you remember, truly remember, you awaken the truth that abundance was never outside of you. It was always waiting within. If you've come this far, it means you're ready to unmask the saboteurs that have quietly shaped your reality. You've seen how fear, procrastination, perfectionism, comparison, impatience, distraction, people-pleasing, and even forgetting your own power can steal your prosperity without you realizing it. But now you also know the truth. Every single one of these saboteurs loses its strength the moment you choose awareness, courage, and action. The question is, what will you do now? Will you let this knowledge fade into just another video you watched? Or will you take one step today to rewrite your story? Remember, prosperity is not an accident. It is the direct result of choices repeated with conviction. And today, you have the chance to make a new choice. The choice to stand in your power, the choice to claim your abundance, the choice to walk toward the life that has always been waiting for you. If this video resonated with you, I want to invite you to be part of this journey with me, like this video, so that more people can find it. Leave a comment and tell me, which of these saboteurs spoke most to you, and which one are you ready to overcome starting today? And most importantly, share this video with someone you care about. You never know whose future could be transformed just because you had the courage to share one message of truth and clarity. And if you want to continue unlocking prosperity, abundance, and success in your life, subscribe to this channel and activate the notifications. Because each week, I bring new content designed to help you remember your power, strengthen your mindset, and align your life with the prosperity you deserve. This is not the end of the journey. It is just the beginning. The saboteurs have been unmasked, and now it's time for you to step forward into your freedom, your prosperity, and your true destiny.